Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to come on and do my Hawaii tips and travel guide for you guys because I know so many of you have messaged me that you're coming or have a trip planned or thinking about planning a trip. So I wanted to come on and give you guys just an overview of traveling to Hawaii and some things that you can expect once you get here. A big thing that I wanted to say though as a disclaimer is that the governor of Hawaii has asked for all non-essential travel to kind of stop right now. They're experiencing a major rise and increase in cases, and because it's Hawaii and it's so far off from the mainland, they're really struggling to have resources to sustain what's going on right now. So just wanted to give you guys that heads up. And then if you guys do choose to travel, or if you are traveling in the future, this video will still be very helpful for you. So I'm so excited to do it. Let's jump right in. There are quite a few things that you need to do in order to prepare to come to Hawaii. If you don't know, Hawaii has right now what's called Safe Travels, and it's a whole database and program on the internet that really tells you what you need to get into the state. You either need a vaccination card and your records, or you need a negative COVID test within 72 hours of your travels. So to be clear, I feel like I saw a lot of crazy stuff happening with the tests. And so there are three things that you need to know. One, it has to be an NAAT test. They have rapid NAAT test and they have normal, like a couple days. So just make sure that when you're choosing your test that you're choosing one that is developed with the Safe Travels program, which CVS and Walgreens are. And then make sure that the test that you choose at CVS and at Walgreens is an NAAT test. The other thing is that 72 hours. So it's 72 hours, not from your first flight, but from your leg to Hawaii. So let's say your first flight is at 9 a.m. and your second flight to Hawaii is at noon. It needs to be 72 hours from that noon mark. So I saw a lot of people kind of getting in a bind with this and getting in the bind with not knowing exactly what test to take. So just make sure that you have all of that kind of clear. So the Safe Travels website requires you to put in your trip information. So it's going to ask you obviously your personal information, and then it's going to ask you dates of where you're traveling, where you're staying, and that sort of thing. So you can go ahead and pre-fill that out prior to you taking your COVID test. Once you get your COVID test or your vaccination card, you can go ahead and upload that. So once you upload that, 24 hours before you leave, you need to fill out your travel questionnaire. So it's basically going to ask you have you been exposed to COVID, blah, blah, blah. You're going to fill that out, and then you're going to get a QR code. This QR code is so important because it's what allows them to just scan it and see that you pass all of the requirements to come into the state. So specifically, we had a connecting flight. So when we got to Vegas, which is where our layover was, there was a line where you could check in. So basically with Southwest, they had two Southwest workers there scanning QR codes, giving you a wristband, and that wristband is what let you bypass the insanely long line in Hawaii. Two other things that I would point out is that you have to make sure that you have a printed copy of your test and your paper vaccination card, because they were literally turning people away. So it's just, I feel like this was the most stressful part of it, because you spend so much time and so much money invested into a trip, and then very easily this one thing can just derail the whole thing. So just make sure that you have your ducks in a row, and if you have any questions about that, just comment them down below and I'll definitely answer them. Another thing that I will say about the COVID test is that I specifically tested at two places. So I tested at Walgreens and I tested at CVS, just because I feel like I knew this was going to happen, and it did happen. I just felt like I wanted to have certainty that I would get one of those tests back. And so this kind of happened with my friend. So my friend was traveling. She had gotten her test done at CVS and Walgreens. We literally get to Hawaii and she still does not have her test results, which is a whole different set of things. But had she not tested at one or the other, one of her tests came back and it was sorry, the sample that we we're going to use didn't turn out right, so you need to come and retest. So thankfully she had already tested at another place and she could use that test result, but just so scary. So moving on to like day of travel, I've already said this, but have your test printed out and have your physical copy of your vaccination card. Seriously, I watched them turn someone away. So just make sure you have that. Make sure you filled out your questionnaire and you have your QR code ready to scan. I've already talked about the wristbands. Make sure you get your wristband and do not take it off until you are out of the airport on whatever island that you're going to be on. So if let's say you get to Hawaii and you don't have your COVID test results. One, you probably shouldn't get to Hawaii and not have your COVID test results, but let's say you do. When you get off the plane, there's kind of like two areas. So one area is this really long line. I mean, like hundreds of people in this line. And then another area is just like this thing where you could walk through. They're just verifying wristbands. So one, don't try to sneak through the wristbands because there are many checkpoints and they were literally trying to arrest people who were trying to sneak in. So don't do that. Have some integrity there. And then secondly, the line. So let's say you were to get through the line and you don't have your COVID test. They would literally just be like, okay, well, you have two options. You can either go back to Los Angeles, take a test, and then fly back, which you have to pay for, or you can go and get a hotel room, which you also have to pay for. So don't do that. What we did in that case, in that scenario where my friend hadn't got her test results back, is we just started calling the labs. And somehow we got through and they were able to send the results to us that her test results were negative. But I made sure that she did not get in that line. We just kind of sat down until she got her results, which I think was probably an hour worth of time. That's probably all on the day of travel. So as of right now, it's the end of August and InterIsland Travel is not requiring any kind of testing. So let's say you're going to Maui, from Maui to the Big Island like I did. One, it's just a super smooth process. It's like a 30-minute flight. You just have to make sure that, you know, they're going to ask you like, are you coming straight from Maui? And then you might have to show like, yes, I came straight from another island, but there's no testing results. You don't have to show a vaccination card or anything. It's just one island to the next. Now, they might put some more procedures in place just because the COVID rates are just rising rapidly, so just make sure and be prepared. Okay, so let's talk like Hawaii in general and some things that I discovered. Like a major thing that I discovered is Hawaii in general is so strict, and I think it's because they're just trying to like protect the land and make sure that people are respecting just like the oceans and everything, and they are super strict, like things that you think, oh, I'll get away with, or this is not a big deal to break, or whatever. Like, they are so strict. So just make sure that you're following all laws. Make sure you freaking wear your mask. Like, don't be one of the people that gets here because you already know that they require you to wear a mask. So don't get here and be the person that's gonna get like a $500 fine because you won't wear your mask. Now, we didn't wear a mask everywhere. So like we wore it when we were like in grocery stores. It's pretty much the same thing on the mainland. So if you're in a grocery store, wear your mask. If you're in like a major public place, wear your mask. But otherwise, like when you're doing tours and stuff, like activities, you really don't have to wear it. When you're at the beach, you definitely don't have to wear it. That sort of things. They're pretty strict about social distancing and wearing your mask. So do both of those things. So something that I experienced is that there were a lot of things that you would want to book. So many people are traveling right now, and because of COVID restrictions, the amount of people that can go on maybe a snorkel tour or a biking tour, all of those are very much lowered. So you just want to make sure that you book all of your things weeks in advance. Like specifically, there was like a park that I wanted to go to on the road to Hana on Maui, and you had to have a reservation for it, and it was booked like a month out. So just make sure that you're like looking up the things that you want to do. Like, this is probably not the trip to be super spontaneous on because you will be disappointed because you won't be able to do some of the things that you want to do. So go ahead and map out those things that are like super important to you, and then yeah, just make sure that you book your reservation. This goes with like cars too. There's a rental car shortage, especially in Hawaii. So just make sure to book that in advance. Make sure to book your rooms in advance and any activities in advance. And that is pretty much all on that. A big thing is when you land in on every island that you can land on. So on Oahu, on Maui, and on the Big Island, there are Costco's and Targets. Usually they're in the same city where the airports are. This is so important. You have to get groceries there, because if not, you're gonna get to the city where you're staying and it's gonna be so expensive. Like, some things were like double the price, and other things like I literally forgot my toothbrush and I paid $8 for a toothbrush. Just make sure to get your stuff in like the major cities. So a big thing that I didn't know is like, if you want to, let's say you just want to like rent snorkel gear and not really go on a snorkel tour or anything, snorkeling needs to be done in the morning, because the later the day, the more it like stirs up the sand and wind and all the things. So earlier in the morning, the better. I would say 2 things to bring is like a hoodie and a rain jacket, because I feel like it rains all the time. Usually it's not for a long period of time, but it's nice to have just in case it starts raining and you just need to pop it on. And then a hoodie, because the mornings are like kind of chilly, and if you're doing anything like we did, biking in the volcano on Maui, and we definitely needed a hoodie. It was freezing. It was like 40 something degrees up there. And then just with the wind blowing and stuff, if you're doing anything early morning, or if you're in a Jeep like with the top off or anything like that, just make sure to bring a hoodie, because it can get a little bit cool. Something that I didn't know is like driving distance and landscape. So let's say you're going like 10 miles down the road, it might take you 30 minutes just because it's like boop 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 boop, all the things. So just give yourself time. Don't leave super late for any activities or anything like that. I didn't know this, but you can literally rent everything. Like, if you don't want to buy a GoPro and you want to come, there are shops everywhere. You can rent GoPros, you can rent drones, you can do whatever. Like, I had no clue how much stuff you could rent, but you can rent all of that stuff, and it's a lot of fun. Explore the town where you're living. So like, we stayed in Kihei, and there's just so much walkable, like everything, like restaurants and grocery stores and different fun stuff. Like, it's just so walkable. So if that's like your vibe, like Kihei or Lahaina are really good for that. So if you're staying at a condo or like Airbnb, VRBO, whatever, just know that they're going to give you like a starter package, and it's going to be super minimal. So it might be like 2 rolls of toilet tissue, like 2 dishwasher packets, 1 thing of paper towels. So if you are with a family or you think you're gonna need more, then definitely get that stuff at like Costco. Lastly, I would say like eating out is so expensive. So I made sure to just like choose a few dinners that I wanted to do out, and otherwise I like cooked or had snacks or whatever. So if you're on a budget or you want to be budget friendly, then make sure to get some groceries, because groceries I didn't find like at Costco or Target, they weren't more like super more expensive than like the mainland, but eating out very much felt like it wasn't abnormal to spend $30 on a meal. So I will specifically talk about the road to Hana, because I feel like I didn't see very many videos with like advice. I would say 1, this is an all-day thing, so like clear your schedule. I think the more heavy duty the car, the better. So if you have a truck or if you have like a Jeep, like that's great. Cars can make it, but like don't be like weird in the car. Like, don't try to go like down crazy things or whatever. Write the mile markers down, because there's 0 service. So road to Hana is like broken into mile markers. So like this beach might be at mile marker 48 or whatever. So just make sure to write down what you want to see in the mile markers, because no service in most spots. There is some service in some spots. I would say bring some Dramamine, because if you're any kind of motion sick, that day is not going to feel fun for you. And then, like I said before, choose what you want to do and be flexible with the list, but like stick to the list, because you will not get through all of it. Especially if you're just wanting to like spend time there and like get the most of your experience. You don't want to feel rushed doing it, because it's so beautiful and there's so many things to see. Bring cash, because a lot of places did not take cards. Don't just pull over just because there's a lot of cars. Like, be intentional about what you want to see, but people are going to pull over just because they see a lot of cars, and it might not be anything that you want to see. So just go with your plan. There are certain things on the road to Hana that require reservations. So if it's like a national park or a state park, you'll want to make sure that you get reservations for that, because they will not let you in. That's part 1 of the Hawaii tips videos. I didn't get to the Big Island, so if you have Big Island questions, comment them down below. And if you have any other questions about Hawaii, comment them down below, and I'll either answer them or follow up with a second video. Thanks so much for watching, and please subscribe. I'm so close to 1,000. I really want to hit 1,000, so you know, please subscribe. Thanks.